not a productive asset. The only input ultimately in Bitcoin is buying, selling coins. Nothing of value is being created. No real world problems are being solved by it. It's ultimately simply a game of musical chairs. It's a greater fool asset. It's an asset that, such as lotteries, casino gambling, pyramid, multi-level schemes, Ponzi schemes of all types, more money goes in than comes out. This is very important. These are the two most important points I'm going to make. Gains and losses across all participants are less than zero. This is not only a zero-sum game, this is a negative-sum game over the long term. Over $3 billion a year is taken out of the Bitcoin universe through fees and transaction costs, for mining costs, and other operating expenses that the exchanges charge. In the long run, the only net long-term winners of Bitcoin are going to be the exchanges that are making money every time an exchange happens, and the speculators who are able to sell at higher prices to the greater fools who are willing to pay more, right? So if you bought Bitcoin today at 58,000, you hope someday you'll sell it to somebody for 158,000. And if you buy it at 158,000, you hope someday you'll sell it to somebody else for $500,000. Someday the music stops. There aren't greater fools and the prices collapse. That is always what happens with bubbles. All profits, and this is very important, people do not understand this, all profits made speculating in Bitcoin ultimately come at the expense of someone else. This is not a magic trick. You cannot create this wealth without somebody else losing. That is the way it works. Bitcoin has no ultimate economy behind it. There's something about how the US dollar is bad, blah, 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 blah. Perhaps the government doesn't always manage it well. But ultimately, the United States economy stands behind the US dollar. It's legal tender. You cannot pay your taxes. You have to pay your taxes in dollars. This creates a demand for the dollar that's not going to disappear. Nothing stands behind Bitcoin. Nothing.
Nothing stands behind the dollar.
Based on what people think is going to be worth it. So it's constantly vulnerable to market manipulation and public sentiment.
You didn't miss anything. He's basically been saying the same thing.
Bubbles, Dutch tulip, South Sea, Japan, real estate.
You got 99%, 90% down in the South Sea, 50 to 70%, 78%, and down.
Bitcoin is ultimately a meta fraud. Apart from speculation, it's a mechanism for shirking the rule of law. Gambling in an irrational,
unfortunately, I can't zoom in.
Investment bubble. A societal parasite perpetuating the myth that it's the next big thing, when it's really an archetype for the greatest fool scam that's been going on throughout all of history. What are the four most expensive words in the English language? This time it's different. My friends, it's not different.
Try to get up closer on the other side.
It is the same thing. Every generation has a new version of it. Ladies and gentlemen, bubbles have three characteristics. They tend to be a single cycle boom that busts, relatively short in duration, and crash back down to the baseline, which is either zero or the price or the inflation adjusted place of where they were before the boom. The Dutch tulip mania was like this. So was the housing bubble. So was the dot-com bubble. And so was pretty much every other bubble ever, including every bubble on John's slide. So what about Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is actually hard to see the price cycle because it's increased such radically in value over time. So we're going to use a logarithmic scale to look at what it looks like on a price cycle where you go from $0 to $1, then to $10, $100. It's called the logarithmic scale, which is often used for assets at this level of upside. So in the
first price cycle, Bitcoin went from about 5 cents up to $32, back to $2. Now, if we were having this debate in 2011, you could be forgiven for believing it met 2 of the 3 criteria of a bubble, except that it landed at a price that was 40 times as high as the 5 cents that it started at. What happened next? It didn't go to 0, it went up to $1,200, came back to 92, meeting now none of the criteria of a bubble. Then what did it do? Well, it zoomed up to $19,000, down to $3,200, meeting once again none of the criteria of a bubble, 35 times the previous low price. Then it zoomed up to $69,000, down to $15,000, once again meeting none of the criteria of any historical bubble we have ever seen. Bubbles look like the bottom left of this chart. They do not look like the orange line. So what does look like that orange line? Well, it turns out every high value asset that has ever become a $1 trillion industry or asset
I'm with
looks
this
just
guy.
like that on the long range chart. Apple, Amazon,
I'm with this guy.
Netflix, even gold.
There you go.
All of these assets do it the same way. The marketplace is trying to figure out how big of a deal is this asset, how big of a deal is this industry, and what role will this economy, technology, or company impact in the global world. Bitcoin is doing the same thing for the very same reason, which is the opposite of how any bubble industry has ever behaved.
Makes sense to me.
So, why is it really? Well, for the first time, we have a borderless, predictable, and scarce monetary asset. What do I mean? Borderless, because Bitcoin is not a full way company or anybody. And that means Bitcoin is not like fiat currency, which is nothing but a bunch of all over. And borderless because you don't have to have government permission to cross the border with more than $10,000.
Go.
Bitcoin is a decentralized and borderless currency that is valuable because the world has never had a universal worldwide currency.
Stick around and we'll
that
chat
works
after
like
the
Bitcoin.
debate.
Bitcoin is also predictable.
Yeah, I am.
Completely unlike the need to be experts to get it wrong. And having money that is absolutely is a very valuable characteristic. Also, Bitcoin is scarce.
Only ever going to be 21 million.
Ever. As opposed to fiat, which is as infinite as a politician.
That's just the U.S. debt clock.
So Bitcoin is the first truly scarce currency the world has ever had. And that is incredibly valuable. So when you sum that up, we have a borderless, predictable, and scarce monetary asset, unlike anything the world has ever seen before. And it's doing exactly what you would expect it to do on its way to more than $1 trillion.
Let's
which
go.
is where it is today, $1 trillion, solving the real world problem of the need for a borderless, predictable, and scarce monetary asset. So the debate before you today is Bitcoin a bubble? That is the question.
I don't think
and
so.
Bitcoin meets none of the criteria of any historical bubble we've ever seen in history. Or does it perhaps, is it an ideal monetary asset that just so happens to check every single box for everything that you would want for a new monetary system for the world? The answer to that question, is Bitcoin a bubble, is obvious.
No.
Alex Green, Oxford. What?
I want to begin by saying that John and I are libertarians. We want to own Bitcoin, trade Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin. Knock yourselves out. We have no objections whatsoever. We're here for one reason and one reason only. That is to argue that Bitcoin is a financial bubble and that all bubbles eventually burst. So you can view this as sort of a public service announcement. Now, I don't look at bubbles the way that Joel does. Joel's very conveniently defined bubbles that Bitcoin doesn't qualify. A financial bubble doesn't happen because an asset's gone up. It doesn't even happen because an asset's gone up a lot. A financial bubble happens when an asset goes up in price so far that it defies rational justification, right?
I don't get it, so I don't like
Let's
it.
start with a little bit of history. On May 22nd, 2010, a programmer bought 2 pizzas from Papa John's. He paid for it with 10,000 Bitcoins. Okay, that's equal to a little over $500 million. Now, I've had pumpkins,
Revolutionary.
and it's really not that good.
Not the point.
So
Not the point at
that's
all.
Maybe the first thing is something's amiss. But of course, Bitcoin traded beyond that. This is back in 2010. In 2011, Bitcoin had its big breakout. It actually hit, hold your breath, $1. So since then, Bitcoin is up 58,000 fold. Right?
Sounds like
For
a bubble.
reference, when Apple brought the iPhone out in 2007, the device has changed our lives. They've sold billions of them.
Yeah, the iPhone bubble, right?
Apple is up.
Talk about, bro.
Best performing stock in the market. But 58,000 fold or 15 million fold from they bought pizza with it. Okay, I've debated a lot of Bitcoin bulls over the years at investment conferences, and I always start by asking them two questions. First one is, aside from speculation, how does Bitcoin make my life simpler, easier, or better? It's a
What do
very
you guys think in the chat? Let me know.
question. How does Bitcoin, not in some imagined future, right now, today, how does Bitcoin? Second question.
Same way any
If you
asset
look at the
does.
market price of Bitcoin, what criteria
Stores your value while the dollar goes to shit.
Notice that Joel didn't discuss either one of those. It's one. So let me tell you why people, I've noticed when I ask this question, Bitcoin goes something odd and it's very hard to hear. Before this is over, they'll answer the question.
I'm all ears. A store of value like any other asset.
Now, the use situation, the problem with that is, one, they told us that Bitcoin would make transactions cheaper, it makes them more expensive. They told us to make transactions
Right now.
faster, makes them slower.
Right
They told us
now.
to make transactions easier, makes them more difficult.
Right now.
So all the things they told us to happen.
We're working on it. FUD.
You're buying a stock, you look at sales, earnings, dividends, book value, other metrics, and you would determine what the stock was worth, and then you would reference the market price to see if it's undervalued or overvalued. You're looking at a bond. You look at the coupon, the yield, the collateral quality, the seniority of the debt, the rating on the bond. You look at the cost price of the bond market, you determine if it's overvalued or undervalued. If you're buying real estate, you look at rental income, appraisals, property tax, homeowner insurance, you do a calculation, and you look at the offer price, is it overvalued or undervalued? Now, what you determine if Bitcoin is, there are none. There are no metrics. Bitcoin is worth what someone is willing to pay for it.
Just like the dollar. Just like the dollar. Yeah, exactly. Why is that a bad thing? I'm waiting for the negative part of this, man. Oh, petulant child. I need it now. I need it now.
For all those reasons, I submit that Bitcoin is a bubble, and where there are bubbles, investors always end up taking it back.
Just because you don't like something doesn't make it a bubble. What do you mean? You didn't make that argument. Again, stick around after the debate. We'll have a chat, guys.
Thank you. I have a suspicion. My opponents in this debate do not properly understand technology that is Bitcoin.
Yep.
If so, it renders them ill-equipped to pass judgment as to whether it is a bubble. Many new technologies throughout the ages are grossly misunderstood. Humans are not very good at managing change. We tend to mock things that we do not understand. Let's look at two historical examples: electricity and the internet. 1879, Thomas Edison invented modern electric light. In the decades after, electricity was ridiculed in the public. Here we have a cartoon from the late 1800s. Newspaper op-eds of the day called electricity devil in the wall. Today, nobody would question the utility of electricity for lighting, refrigeration, air conditioning, how robots
Oh, shit. We good?
The internet was gifted to
Sorry, I didn't see you guys were commenting. I'm not used to this on my phone. Let me know.
In 1998, Paul Krugman famously said, "The internet's impact on the economy will be no greater than that of tax making." This guy won a Nobel Prize in
Loser.
economics. You know what also happens to be 15 years old right now?
Bitcoin.
All seminal technologies throughout human history are only understood properly by the general population in hindsight. Bitcoin is one of
Completely
the
agree.
most important technologies ever invented for humanity, on par with fire and the wheel and the printing press, and yes, electricity and the internet in terms of its import to humanity. 20 years from now, this will be obvious to everybody, but today let's give you a fundamental framework
Wait,
to help you understand why I know this with certainty. Bitcoin is both an asset
Yeah.
and a network simultaneously.
like this?
Bitcoin, the financial asset, as Alex and John and Joel have been described. You go to your computer, you duplicate many things. Favorite photo, a file, a document. You cannot duplicate Bitcoin, the asset. It is a digital variable.
Thanks, Be Cloud. Let me know. Keep me updated. Over here.
So with those
I want to catch the
where you take them, where much place is very high.
how's that?
But at the same time, Bitcoin is also a network. This is what difficult. We have billions of dollars of Bitcoin mining. World-class data.
There we go. Thank you, P Club.
Computer network ever seen by history. And they're voluntarily running at no expense the Bitcoin protocol software. Before we get to that, why are they doing this? Let's talk about Henry Ford, one of the great American businessmen of all time. 1921, New York, top of the 103 years ago. Henry Ford says, if you want to stop gold wars, you would have a currency based upon kilowatt hours. Well, you know what, folks? That's exactly what we have today. Bitcoin miners running the Bitcoin protocol convert electricity into monetary value. What is this Bitcoin protocol that I said? It is free and open source software. So it's very different than software that Microsoft, Apple, you have to pay for, and it's a black box. You have no idea how the code works. Bitcoin protocol software, by contrast, is free for any human being to view, audit, and use. Part of what's written into the code is a hard cap on supply. No more than 21 million Bitcoin. Absolute scarcity. What does this all mean? Bitcoin is the most beautiful form of sound money ever invented. It is unseizable. If you want to be, you can truly be your own bank. It is uncensorable. Nobody can stop a Bitcoin transaction. Like Visa or Venmo or your bank, you can censor any transaction they want. And it cannot be inflated away like politicians do with fiat currency because they can never resist the allure of the central bank printing press. Why is this important? 250 years ago, our country was founded in part on this notion that we could separate church from the state. With Bitcoin, for the first time in human history, we have the possibility of separating the money from the state. This has profound implications. Bitcoin is 15 years old, was intentionally launched at the height of the great financial crisis. And during the past 15 years of Bitcoin, we have been seeing the birth of an entirely new financial system with Bitcoin protocol faced with. Last time I checked, birth in nature is both volatile and violent. It's not a smooth process. And so with Bitcoin, we see the birthing of this new system expressed in the metric of the old system, dollar price. Gone down 70% or more, 4 times over, going up and to the right forever on a logarithmic scale because it's one of the most important technologies ever invented. Bitcoin is not a bubble. With Bitcoin, we are seeing the birth of a new system that is critical for human freedom.
Beautiful. Then guys, stick around afterwards. We'll have a little chat.
I love how our opponents like to compare Bitcoin to a favorable thing. We don't need to compare it to the Hula bubble or the Japanese real estate bubble. We're going to compare it to other.
Yeah, because those companies are doing well, just like
Let me
Bitcoin.
ask you a question. You know why Apple's not a bubble? Because Apple is a corporation that keeps many great products, services.
No, it's because they keep making money. Exactly. So does Bitcoin.
Perpetual business continuing to grow and expand, and it's creating great value for the shareholders. Same with Netflix.
Same with Bitcoin.
How much cash flow
does Bitcoin produce? Zero. The goods and services, how much does it produce? Zero.
That's
Our
what?
opponents
It's
like
not a
to- they like
product.
to have it both ways. They want to say that
I mean, it is a
Bitcoin
product, but
currency, and it's an asset. It's
you could
not.
say the same thing about a painting.
It's not useful as a currency. And if what they say is an asset.
That's fine.
Million Bitcoins printed means it's never going to be useful as a currency.
Somebody's never heard of a Satoshi.
For many, many reasons.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Mostly because of volatility. I mean, you think retail like Whole Foods Market's going to take Bitcoin when it might be 58,000 one day, 2,000 the next day. We're going to have to be figuring out the price of Bitcoin by the second. It's not useful as a currency. So my final point before I run out of time here.
Store of value.
Whether it's a bubble or not. Let me ask some of my opponents to answer the question. If $58,000 for Bitcoin is not a bubble, what if it was selling for $1 million? Would it be a bubble then? What if it was selling for $1 billion? Would it be a bubble then? What about $1 trillion? What about $100 trillion? When would it be a bubble? My God, it's gone up from half a cent to $58,000 today. Wake up.
Again, why is that bad?
a bubble. That is a bubble.
How? How?
We can get those slides back on. I want to answer that question real quick. Thank you. All right. So, how do you value Bitcoin? That question has been asked. We know it's an ideal monetary system. We know it's not a bubble according to the data. But how do you value it? Well, ARK Invest and the Chartered Financial Analyst Institute are the two best resources to get exactly what is the right price, how do you model it, all of that. They put forward 4 models. We have time to look at 2: network effect and market size. So Metcalfe's law is how you value something that has network effect. Whether it's a telegraph, telephone, the internet, anything that becomes more valuable, people factor it. And it says the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of users. So as the users go up linearly, the value of being on that network with everyone else that's on there goes exponentially. So if Bitcoin has less than 100,000 users in 2011, it did, and the price was $1 a coin, and the number of users increases to more than 27 million today, which it is, far in excess of that, you would expect when there's a 270x increase in users, for there to be a 74,000x increase in the value of being part of that network, which is roughly where we are with regard to Bitcoin. So you can square that 270x, you get 73,000x. You just look at 27 million users squared as compared to 100,000 users squared. So if you don't like that approach, you can also go to ARK Invest, their 2023 Big Ideas Report, page 65, and they will lay down in very specific detail exactly how you value Bitcoin, exactly where they get those numbers, exactly how they come to a price of somewhere between 258,000 and 1.48 billion year 2030. They will answer all of that for you in exactly detail. You want to see it's all there. There are plenty of models online. And as far as what makes Bitcoin valuable, for the last years, everything I buy is with Bitcoin, with the Coinbase debit card, everything. And well, everybody who's using US dollars, their money is losing value in the long run over time. I am using money that is increasing in value over time. That is valuable. Thank you.
I do agree. I don't know why you would want to spend it at this point, aside from moving for the movement.
I routinely ask the attendees, how many people in the room own or have owned Bitcoin? And generally about 3/4 of the hands go up. This is investment conferences that much more than the general population, less than 20% of Americans own Bitcoin. But then when I ask the attendees, how many of you who own Bitcoin have used it to buy something? Virtually every hand in the room. I'm glad Joel has used it. I'm glad he has an explanation for how to value it, because I still don't understand it. I've been a bank analyst for 40 years. But the reality is, what is a currency worth that virtually nobody is using?
They just seem mad, like they don't have an argument. They just seem not to like it and then say bubble.
Rumor turned up in false that Amazon was going to start accepting Bitcoin. It's pretty bad. Amazon took Bitcoin, so the product costs the same. It's all premised on the idea that the
currency.
The fact that they're not bringing up El Salvador is very telling.
We're looking at it as a massive bubble based on definite fever and fear. And if you think Bitcoin is not particularly good for buying and selling because of the volatility, imagine borrowing or lending in Bitcoin. Imagine that you lent 100,000 Bitcoin out, and we went through a crypto winter, you got $50,000 back. How does that look? Or let's say you borrowed $100,000 in Bitcoin and it tripled in value. Now you owe $300,000. No one is buying, selling, literally, but none of us are routinely buying and selling in Bitcoin. We're not
Yet.
borrowing or lending in Bitcoin.
Yet.
Why?
Because we're not there yet.
And I asked both Chris and Joel, Chris is still coming up, to please just give me one way that Bitcoin today, not in some imagined future, will make my life simpler, easier, better, and I'm still waiting.
The same way a painting does. The same way a painting does.
Yes. I come back to my original premise of how to simply how to is an asset, is a network, and it is a protocol
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Yep.
So you're
They just don't get it.
Say things like, oh, it's only used for secrecy for people who want to trade drugs. Bitcoin is a public database. Every transaction is out there. Here's an analogy. If I go back to my hotel room, I create an email address, yada yada at Gmail. I send you a nasty email from that Gmail address. You're not going to have any idea who came from. The FBI can figure out in 28 seconds who sent that email if they want to, that I was the generator. Same thing with Bitcoin. It's a public ledger. It's the last thing that people will use for nefarious activities. That's what they use dollars for. You hear that Bitcoin's not scalable. Again, this is a complete misunderstanding of the technology. Look at our banking system. We have this thing called the Federal Reserve, and dollars get settled at Fedwire. Nobody in this room has access to Fedwire. Most of you probably don't even know what Fedwire is. But post World War II, we built our banking system in layers. We have commercial banks, and then we have things like ACH, SWIFT, wire transfers, the ATM networks, credit cards, and the peer-to-peer systems like Venmo and PayPal, right? The internet was built through layers. In 1983, if you had the top internet technologists in the world, you put them in a room and said, show them what the internet today, most of them would say it's not feasible, but we bastardized TCP/IP, say that in a positive fashion. In a way, we were built layers on it to do things that people never could imagine. Bitcoin, the base layer, is fast, not slowly. You need to compare Bitcoin to Fedwire, right? Fedwire transactions clear in days. I can send $1 billion around the world in 10 minutes, right? Bitcoin is insanely fast compared to dollars, not slowly. We're going to build layers on top of Bitcoin, just like we built layers in the commercial banking system for this brave new world. And you want Bitcoin because it's centralized and not controlled by the government as we enter a relatively dystopian future. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, right on time, no discussion of anybody's handicap in golf, and no vice comments. Thank you.
All right. So what do you guys think? Let's see. I'm gonna try and find a quiet place. Oh, question and answer. Okay. Can you hear the question?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question is would Bitcoin be easier to use for buying and selling if there was no capital gains tax on Bitcoin on transactions? Yes, absolutely. A lot of people are worried about that. Coinbase, with the Coinbase debit card, makes it super easy for you because it does it all for you in the background and calculate all of that. But yes, a lot of people are concerned about that. Like, if I buy something with Bitcoin that's appreciated, do I have to pay tax on that? The answer is yes, but somewhere like Coinbase does all the work for you. Simple. But yes, and it helps out where it is legal tender. You don't have to worry about that.
All day.
Anybody else on this question? We'll go to the next one. Next question. Right in front of green, and then behind you.
What is the back end liquidity of any currency? All currencies are fiat, including gold,
Because what you're really buying in the future is air, water, food, energy, communication. We talked about Papa John. What was Papa John's price? Dollars, gold, and Bitcoin 10 years from now.
Any question? Everybody?
Again, I think
What's the future purchasing power? The dollar, gold, and Bitcoin.
the long-term future of Bitcoin,
Wow, wow.
it's not an asset that's producing, it's not useful as a currency because it's too volatile. It's not creating any cash flow. It's not fundamentally solving a problem.
Move towards the mic if you have a question. Yeah. Go ahead. There's a mic
I'm gonna
over
try
there.
to get over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me know if the sound is good. Which one's better? When I pointed at them or when I pointed at the screens?
Next question. We got 30 seconds to your question. Ask the following that we have to get. 30 seconds.
How can Bitcoin have no value if Fedwire is adopting it?
Next.
And I'd be really interested in the audience, how many people believe that Bitcoin will be worth zero? How many believe that Bitcoin will be valuable in the future?
Next.
Await the evidence.
Next.
Thank you, Frank.
Is it time?
Yeah.
All right, so 2 to the right, 3 to the left, the far left, maybe neutral.
Huh?
The division has been created. But I think the most important thing throughout this discussion, the 2 on the right of me are saying the 2 to the left of you are ignorant and don't understand the technology. Ignorant and don't understand the technology. Okay, I'm almost done.
There's always
You on the right explain how a single Bitcoin is mined and where the value is created in the mining process. Is it just electricity or something else?
on you.
Isn't the ultimate question, simple question, whether Bitcoin will eventually be money? And that's the value. If right now, I think it's a pure speculation. I agree, it has no asset, it has no real asset value. But the hope for Bitcoin, isn't it, that it will eventually become money? And let me just say, the more it's used in consumption, not just people buying it for speculation, the more it's used, the more likely it is to become money, right? Is that right?
Okay, very few places that I can spend Bitcoin directly.
So I'm told, okay, I can go to Coinbase, I can get a credit card. Or I'm told, oh, well, we're going to build this system in layers. Now, that means the government can get involved because they will monitor Coinbase or other companies that on-ramp and off-ramp, or these other layers that you're going to put on top of the system that are not secure like the blockchain is.
Great question, Matt.
This question is for Mr. Mackey. Love you very much, sir. Good to see you again. You asked, how would we know if Bitcoin is in a bubble? And I'd like to do it enumerate perhaps. How would you know that the dollar itself is in a bubble?
Great question.
I'm not super about sure,
Like staying power.
True.
I guess the people
The
who-
.com.
Power.
This question, Matt.
My question is with the founding of Bitcoin. I know you guys said that that's really good for Bitcoin, but doesn't that mean that the cost to miners is being cut in half? And isn't it the miners, they're the ones who are performing the transactions? And also to your point earlier, if there's a public ledger and that stays there with the Bitcoin, when you get trillions of dollars, trillions of transactions, that goes along with that public ledger. Doesn't that increase the purchase or the processing power per Bitcoin transaction in the future?
Good, that's
Hi, everyone. My question is how do you see the interaction between Bitcoin and digital financial involved?
okay. You got number
All right. Answer all of those. And then we'll have a little chat.
So, so the breakthrough of blockchain technology is digital scarcity. The ability to have a digital money that you can send anywhere in the world with no ability for anyone to block it or censor it. That is a massive breakthrough that people have worked decades and nobody figured it out until in digital Bitcoin. As far as trading Bitcoin directly, yeah, Bitcoin is that part. And what's the motive as that question? The motive is using a currency that the government doesn't make more of, and therefore is not like state of losing money. How insane is it that we have a currency that is supposed to lose 2% every year, and generally loses 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9%. They print 6, 7% more money every single year. It's insane that we're expecting to keep that as money. That's insane. Bitcoin makes money.
Why? Bring it home. Bring it home. All right. Neither does a painting. Neither does a painting. You'd only ask that if you don't understand what you're talking about. You already said this, man. You already said this. Projection. All right. Well, let me just switch the camera here. Hold on. All right. Boom. There we go. All right. What did you guys think? I'm going to try and find a quiet place. They got RFK coming up next, so they got to sweep the whole room. Let's see. I didn't hear the question. They're just taking a poll, but I don't know. I'm not super. Sorry, I'm gonna try and get somewhere quieter. But I'm not super well educated in Bitcoin. I mean, I understand the blockchain. I understand how it all works. But I understand also that it's meant to, whether or not eventually it becomes a currency, it's something that is a store of value. And so that's why I kept talking about paintings. Like, what if you buy a painting? That's not gonna do anything for you other than the fact that you have that painting, and it might go up in value, and you can sell it for a higher price when someone else wants it. And so if that's all Bitcoin is right now, at the very worst, it's the same thing as a painting. So I don't even know if you guys can hear me. This looks quiet over here. Yeah, what did you guys think? What did you guys think? You guys have Bitcoin? I got into Bitcoin. I'm not used to this camera. Okay. I got into Bitcoin when over the lockdowns, and I didn't know. I didn't know that it was going to take a huge dip for the next 4 years. But by learning and understanding that it's not a short-term thing, that it's a long-term thing, I'm happy. I'm happy. All right, so I guess nobody in the chat here is being very talkative, so I'll leave it to the replay gang. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so very, very much for hanging out. I'm your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, I am out of here.